My younger brother, Xander, has always been a troubled child. Unlike me, a successful software company owner, his life was full of failures. My wife, Veronica, and I were happily married for 8 years and lived in a cozy suburb of Chicago. Veronica is a beautiful woman with long red hair and green eyes. She always wore bright dresses that accentuated her slender figure. Her laughter was contagious, and she easily found a common language with others. I, Caleb, am a man of medium height with short brown hair and brown eyes. I'm used to a businesslike style of dress, preferring suits and ties. Xander, on the other hand, always looked a little untidy. His blonde hair was always tousled, and his clothes were baggy and sloppy. There was always a spark of cunning in his blue eyes, but something was wrong that night. At a family meeting, I noticed that Xander was looking at us strangely. His eyes narrowed as Veronica hugged my hand and smiled. When I caught his eye, he quickly turned away, but the feeling of anxiety did not leave me. "You two are just perfect together," Xander said, coming up to us with a tight smile. There was bitterness in his words. "Don't be jealous, Xander," Veronica replied, laughing lightly. "When you find your soulmate, everything will be fine." I noticed how Xander's jaw clenched for a moment, but he quickly changed his expression and smiled. "Yes, you're probably right," he said. "Just trying to keep my big brother on his toes." The evening went on without incident, but I couldn't get Xander's strange behavior out of my head. He seemed envious, and that bothered me. After a few weeks, Xander began to come to us often without warning. At first, I was glad to be able to spend more time with him. I hoped that I could influence him positively, but then interesting things began to happen. "Xander knows how to make me laugh," Veronica said one evening after he left. "You could learn from him not to be so serious all the time." I hugged her, laughing. "You'd get tired of me if I was a 24/7 comedian." "But you're right. I'll try to relax more often." With each visit from Xander, I noticed more and more how Veronica enjoys his company. They laughed, joked, and took photos together. At that moment, it seemed to me that nothing terrible was happening. But subconsciously, I felt that Xander was trying to take a place that belongs only to me. It's been a few weeks since Xander started coming to visit us often. Veronica started complaining that I was too busy working. Her approaches became more frequent and sharp. "Caleb, you're always in the office," she said one evening. We were sitting in the kitchen after dinner. "Sometimes it seems to me that you have already emotionally left our marriage." I put down my fork and looked at her. "Veronica, I'm trying my best for us. You know how important my job is." She shook her head, tears glistening in her eyes. "But sometimes I feel so lonely. Xander understands me in a way you can't anymore." These words startled me. How could my own brother come between us? I trusted Xander completely and never thought that he might have dishonest intentions. But his frequent visits began to seem suspicious to me. I asked, trying to hide my indignation, "Why did you suddenly mention him?" "Because he's always there when you miss me," Veronica replied. "He knows how to listen and support. And you're busy all the time." I got up from the table and went to the window. It was starting to rain outside the glass. I felt a wave of anger rising inside me, but I restrained myself. "I understand that work takes a lot of time," I said calmly. "But I'm doing this for us. I'll try to spend more time at home." Veronica sobbed softly and hugged herself. "I just want you to be there for me, Caleb. It seems to me that you are moving away." In the following days, I tried to devote more time to my family. We had dinner together, walked in the park. But despite my efforts, Veronica continued to distance herself. I started to notice how she spends more time with Xander. They laughed and joked like old friends. One evening, I came home and heard them laughing from the living room. Veronica and Xander were watching a movie, sitting too close to each other on the couch. I felt my heart tighten with jealousy. "What's going on here?" I asked, trying to speak calmly. "We're just watching a comedy," Veronica replied, smiling. "Do you want to join?" I shook my head. "No thanks, I'm tired. I'm going to rest." As I went up the stairs, I could hear them still laughing. I couldn't sleep for a long time that night. The thought that something was wrong did not leave me. I felt a chasm growing between Veronica and me, and I didn't know how to overcome it. The following week, I arrived home early from a business trip to surprise Veronica. The house was quiet and empty. Her car was still there, but she wasn't in sight. "Veronica?" I called, entering the living room. There was no answer. I searched the whole house, but I couldn't find her anywhere. A feeling of anxiety began to grow inside me. I took out my phone and decided to use the GPS tracker that we had installed on her phone for safety. The signal led me to a cheap motel near the airport. My heart started beating faster. I couldn't believe my eyes. Why is she there? I quickly got into the car and drove there. It was raining like a bucket, but I didn't pay attention to it. All my thoughts were about Veronica. When I arrived, I saw a car in the motel parking lot. Inside, everything was boiling with anger and fear. I went up the stairs and found the right room. The door was ajar. I pushed it open and went in. Veronica was inside. She was lying on the bed, with Xander. They didn't notice me right away. "Hey bro," Xander said, getting up from the bed with a smug smile. "I'm sorry you had to find out about it like that." Veronica screamed when she saw me. She clutched at the sheet, trying to cover herself. "Caleb, it's not what you think. Not what I think it is." I interrupted her. "What are you doing here with my brother?" Xander began to dress slowly. "We're in love, Caleb. You just have to accept it." I felt the world crumbling around me. Anger and pain mixed into something unbearable. I couldn't listen to their excuses anymore. "You're both traitors," I said through my teeth. "You, Xander, have ruined everything." "Veronica, I never thought that you were capable of such a thing." Veronica began to cry. "Caleb, I'm sorry. I do not know what came over me. I don't know what got into you." I couldn't believe my ears. "You ruined our marriage. You and Xander ruined everything." I turned around and left the room, leaving them there. It was raining harder, but I wasn't paying attention. Thoughts were spinning in my head about how I could be so blind. I got in the car and drove away, not knowing what to do next. I was sitting at home trying to make sense of what had happened. Suddenly, I noticed an envelope on the threshold. My name was written on it. With trembling hands, I opened it and found a USB drive inside. When I turned it on my laptop, I saw a video. Veronica and Xander were on the screen. They were kissing on our couch, his hands wandering over her body. The video switched to footage from the motel. I felt the anger filling me up again. My brother Xander specially recorded these moments to bully me. I realized that I had to act. The time for revenge has come. The next day, I called our mutual friend, Louis Wilder. He was a famous photographer and mentor to Xander. "Louis, hi. I have important information about Xander." I began. "Caleb, what happened?" Louis replied with a note of alarm in his voice. "Xander betrayed me. He seduced my wife and recorded it on video. I want you to know who you're dealing with," I said, trying to keep my voice even. Louis was silent for a few seconds. "This is serious. I can't ignore it. Thanks for telling me." After the conversation, I collected all the evidence of infidelity: videos, photos, text messages. I've compiled a detailed dossier to destroy Xander's reputation, and I've also decided to have a family meeting. I invited everyone close to me. I knew Veronica would be there without suspecting anything. In the evening, when everyone was gathered, I stood in the center of the living room. "Thank you for coming. I have an important announcement." Veronica stood next to me, smiling. She didn't expect what would happen next. "I want to show you something," I said and turned on the TV. The same videos appeared on the screen. There was a deathly silence in the room. Everyone looked at the screen with shock and disbelief. Veronica screamed and covered her face with her hands. "Caleb, please, no." "Yes, Veronica, it's true," I said coldly. "You betrayed me with my own brother. Xander wrote it down to bully me." My mother started crying, and my father shook his head in disbelief. "How could you, Xander?" he asked. Xander stood there, not knowing what to say. His face turned pale. "I was hoping that you, Xander, would change someday," I said, looking into his eyes. "But you crossed the line. Now you will reap the consequences of your actions." I turned to Veronica. "You ruined our marriage. I can't be with you anymore." She fell to her knees, sobbing. "Caleb, I'm sorry. I was stupid. Please give me a chance." I shook my head. "There's no chance anymore." I turned around and left the room. I knew this was just the beginning. The next morning, I called Louis Wilder to make an appointment. I knew that his opinion carried weight in the professional community and that he could deal a devastating blow to Xander's career. "Louis, hi. Will you be able to meet me today?" I asked. "Of course, Caleb. What happened?" His voice sounded worried. "It's important. It's related to Xander," I replied shortly. We met at his office in the city center. Louis looked focused but friendly. I took out the evidence file and handed it to him. "What is it? What is it?" he asked, opening the folder. "These are videos and photos proving Xander's infidelity with my wife." He wrote it all down and used it against me, I said quietly. Louis watched the video. His face turned pale. "It's terrible. I would never have thought that he was capable of such a thing. I wanted you to know the truth. I know you're considering him for an important project," I continued. Louis closed the folder and sighed. "Thank you for informing me. I can't work with such a person. He will be excluded from all projects." We shook hands and I left the office feeling that the first step towards revenge had been taken. I began to feel the weight of betrayal finally beginning to ease. My revenge was done, and I knew that a new stage of my life was ahead of me. That's how the story ended. Leave your opinion in the comments about this story. We will be interested to know what you think. Also, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to our channel. That way you won't miss new exciting stories. Good luck to you.